area is characterized by a short, rainy winter season and a long, dry season. And although Israel is about 300 times smaller than Australia, and obviously wildfires in Israel are not as big as they are in Australia and other places around the world, still wildfires are quite significant for us and an important thing to study. Wildfires are usually mapped globally using remote sensing as MODIS or other sensors. The causes for fires include human causes such as deforestation, prescribed fires, negligence, arson, and there are also areas in the world where natural fire causes are important, such as lightning strikes in Australia and other savanna areas, volcanoes can start fires. However, in Israel, all fires are human caused, and the largest factor of causing fires is attributed to arson, sometimes political reasons behind the ignition of these fires. And many studies predict there will be an increase in wildfires. One reason is related to climate change predictions, increasing temperatures in the future. Another reason is an increase in wood vegetation cover. For example, in Israel in the past 6, 7, 8 decades, many forests were planted. So mostly of pine trees which are relatively flammable, so got more fuel load. In many areas in Europe, the rural population abandoned the villages, moved to the cities. So there's a revegetation of the forest in some mountainous areas, so again, got more wood fuel that can burn. Vegetation in Israel is composed of cactus forests, such as these pine trees on the right, Mediterranean chaparral or maquis, which is composed of oak trees and other species, which is less flammable, and herbaceous vegetation, which dries up during summer, making it quite easy to catch fire. There is a large interannual variability in fire, globally and also in Israel. And here you can see the amount of burnt area based on the type of vegetation which is burning. However, these are underestimations, and there's currently no agency in Israel, and the situation is quite similar in other Mediterranean countries, which is monitoring the spatial and temporal distribution of fires. So there are some knowledge gaps in this area, and just to show you some examples of how fires can be captured in satellite images, you can see a false color composite in the infrared Lancet images, of a Lancet image. The blue areas are revegetation, brown areas possibly fire scars. And using change detection techniques, you can easily see new fire scars appearing every 2-4 weeks in this area in the northeast of Israel. That's the Sea of Galilee, the lower left, where Jesus supposedly walked in water. So fire scars can be identified based on change detection techniques, and also if you have a thermal sensor, you can identify hotspots, hot events. And in this specific case, you can see the flames of an active fire that happened to be there when Lancet passed over the area. However, in Israel, most fires are short in the temporal duration, lasting just several hours, so it's not very likely to capture them. But the satellite will be over the area when fire is taking place. So although Lancet has the perfect spatial resolution for this application, it doesn't have the temporal resolution needed. It doesn't always take quiet images every 16 days, and many times it's cloud covered. Therefore, now in this research, we wanted to see the potential of MODIS for mapping fires in Israel, taking into account that the fires in Israel are quite small in area, and also the landscape heterogeneity in Mediterranean areas. And then to analyze the factors controlling the spatial and temporal distribution of fires in Israel, in space and in time. So we compared 3 MODIS burned area products. 2 of them are off the shelf and download from the internet. These are the MCD45A1, which is based on change detection algorithms. It's available on the monthly database, spatial resolution of 0.5 kilometer. The other off-the-shelf product is the MODIS Firms Active Fires, which is based on hot events, on the temperature, and that's on the monthly database, 1 kilometer spatial resolution. In addition, we produced our own algorithm for mapping wildfires based on the MOD 13Q1. That's the MODIS vegetation indices product, 250 meters every 16 days, and it offers 4 spectral bands from which we can calculate various indices and create our own algorithm for saying this is a burnt area or not. Burnt areas are many times mapped using the normalized burn ratio, this NBR index, which is like NDVI, but only in the infrared bands. And more specifically, they are mapped using the difference in the NBR. What are the changes in the NBR values pre and post fire? Or another version of this index is the relative difference in normalized burn ratio. That's a long name, RDNBR. Why do we go to the infrared? If you look at the visible, and it's quite difficult to tell apart fire scars, these dark areas from water bodies, for example, or other dark places, and also smoke can can obscure parts of the image. Whereas in the infrared, the fire scars are quite easy to discern, and in addition, infrared light penetrates through smoke, so we've got much more coverage of the area seen. If we look at these two indices, the difference in the normalized burn ratio, DNVR, and the difference in the NDVI, classic vegetation Venus index, pre and post fire, we can see that DNVR performs much better. And the reason that in many cases we don't see a big change in NDVI following fire is that in many areas, such as savanna type areas, vegetation is already dry, it's already yellow before the fire. So the fire itself does not cause a big reduction in the NDVI values. So we can see that in Landsat, we can identify these fire scars quite easily, but does it work with MODIS in these small fire scars, relatively small ones? So if you just remember in your mind this pattern of these three scars here, and let's move to see the same index in MODIS, the same date. And indeed you can see these three fire scars, these bright areas. So supposedly bright areas are fire scars, however there are also many false positives. Many bright areas that obviously are not fire scars in this lake, for example. So we want to exclude all these false positives to have just the real wildfires. And to do that, we created a training set of many burnt areas, non-burnt areas, false positives, and then experimented with a suite of spectral bands, spectral indices to determine thresholds. What is fire, what isn't fire? And here's just an example. Each of these points is one of our regions of interest, as they are called in our community. And then we determine using scatter plots just visually. Thresholds, if it is above a certain threshold or below, it is a fire or not. And we use all these spectral bands and spectral indices, both from the time of an image and some time steps before and after the image to be able to differentiate if certain pixel did in reality burn or not burn. This way we created our time series of binary image of burnt areas. Starting from February 2000, altogether it's time series of more than 250 slices. Using these time series, we can now calculate for each pixel the fire frequency. How many times did it burn in the last decade? So now let's move on to see some results. First, let's look at the spatial distribution and the validation of this data set. We also determine the threshold area, looking at only at fires above a certain size so as to remove salt and pepper noise from the results. And we were only interested in the natural regions. We exclude all the agricultural areas, agricultural fires from our analysis that they didn't interest us. In these maps, we see fire frequency. The colors indicate how many times did the place burn in the past decade. The two left-hand products are the off-the-shelf MODIS products, change detection amplifiers, and on the right, we see two versions of our own mapping. Some interesting things in these maps, you can see, first of all, some hotspots of high fire frequency here in the northeast, and we will soon understand why it is. And to the southwest of Jerusalem, another hotspot of fire, and the good correspondence between the MODIS product and our product. The hotspots product of MODIS isn't very good in identifying these hotspots, possibly due to the short duration of most fires in Israel, so that we didn't have the satellite just passing over the fires. If you remember the first fire I showed you in the Carmel mountain, the largest ever in Israel, 23 square kilometers, that's not big. Globally, but for us it's very big. For some reason it was missed by the MODIS product, the standard one, the world area, whereas our algorithm was able to identify it. To validate, to examine the accuracy of our product, we created a data set of fire scars we visually identified from Landsat images, Landsat time series. And here you can see in the upper middle, the Landsat digitized fire scars for 2010. To the right of that, upper right, you can see the MODIS derived burned area product. Looks quite similar. The accuracy is very high. We also validated the fire scar sizes for 2010. And obviously, MODIS is not expected to identify the small fires. However, fire scars above 1 square kilometer, almost all of them were identified using MODIS. So being now satisfied with the accuracy of our algorithm, we started to look at the spatial and temporal trends of wildfires in Israel. First of all, let's look at them temporally. So here we stack all the fires on the calendar year, starting from January, going over to December. So this is winter, rainy season, no fire, of course. However, the main season for fires in Israel is not summer. That's actually the transition seasons, spring and autumn. As you can see, these two big modes of fire activity. In this season, Israel is affected by synoptic systems coming really as hot and dry air from the Sahara and from Saudi Arabia, so good conditions for fire spread. Whereas in summertime, between these two peaks, Israel is under the Persian Trough synoptic system, which brings us moisture from the Mediterranean. So although it's hot, relative humidity is high, so these are not good conditions for fire spread. Now looking at some of the climatic factors also affecting fire, we see on an annual basis, we identified the positive correlation between rainfall in the preceding year and the amount of burnt area in the following dry season. And the explanation for this is actually quite logical. If we have more rainfall, we have prolific vegetation growth, mainly vegetation, so more fuel can be burned in the following dry season, which in Israel there's never any rain in the summer. It's totally dry. Now let's look at some spatial patterns. To map the vegetation color type, we use Landsat imagery, and based on the spring and summer image of representing maximum and minimum green vegetation, we map the percent cover per pixel of the bare soil in red, seasonal vegetation in green, and perennial vegetation in blue per pixel. And then now let's overlay our fire scars on top of this map. And you can notice the fire scars in black, that most of the fires take place in areas of herbaceous vegetation, which is, of course, it catches fire much easily, and less so in the areas of the forests where most of the public is interested. And usually the forest fires are the ones that catch the media, and not the ones of, in herbaceous vegetation type. This was also statistically confirmed. We can see that in different ecoregions, the higher is the percent of annual vegetation cover, the higher is the percent of the burnt area, and you can see the Golan on the upper right. This ecoregion, that's this area in the northeast, which has a lot of, which becomes totally dry in summer, totally yellow in its appearance, so there are many fires over there. Another way to look at it is to examine what is the percent vegetation cover in different areas with different fire frequencies. And you can see that in areas that burned more than twice in the last decade, more than 90% of the vegetation was composed of herbaceous vegetation. Whereas in areas that didn't burn at all, the cover of perennial vegetation was higher than in the other areas. To show you a visual example for this area, we can look at a specific fire that took place in Israel, the vegetation is almost totally yellow, dry, and fire can spread quite easily. However, soon just a year and a half later, I took this picture. Everything is green again. So herbaceous vegetation also recovers very quickly. You can also see this in the NDVI time series. In this time series, we can see the phenology of herbaceous vegetation. With low NDVI values during the dry season, summer, high NDVI values in winter. And the fire event caused the NDVI values to drop a bit more than they usually do. However, in the next winter season, next rainy season, they recover to the pre-fire values. So this kind of ecosystem can burn almost every year because there is fuel recovers very quickly, unlike forest areas. Another interesting factor, as you may recall, I told you that human factors are the sole cause for fires in Israel. This area happens also to be a military training zone. And now if we overlay the outlines of military training zones on the fire frequency map, we can see that almost all the hotspots of fires take place within military training zones. So this is negligence. It's not intended, of course, but you can see this agreement in space. You can also see statistically areas with higher fire frequency tend to have a higher percentage of military training zones within them. You can also look at it again in another way, per ecoregion, the percent of area dedicated for military training areas versus the percent of burnt area within each ecoregion. In conclusion, we have shown that MODIS indeed can be used for mapping wildfires in heterogeneous Mediterranean landscapes, although these wildfires are usually quite small in area. Areas prone to fire in Israel consist of herbaceous vegetation, and many times they are also nearby military training areas. Another thing related to this is that fire extinguishment efforts are usually higher if a forest is burned, whereas if it's just herbaceous vegetation in a remote area, then it is less important for the fire forces to try and take it out. And these fire frequency maps can aid in defining fire risks in space and in time, which is also important, where and when to allocate our fire forces. For those of you interested, this paper will, any day now, will be available online. I'd like to acknowledge my co-author here, Aliza Limovic, which is also part of this study. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'd like to answer you. Okay, so let's see if you have time. I think there's time for one question. Yeah?
Well, have you also tried world view 2 images, because the revisit time would be more often for the sensor?
What with world view 2?
World view 2.
The only problem is that it's very expensive to cover the country. It doesn't have the infrared bands that we would like to have. It only has the near infrared. It doesn't have the short range infrared band, which is needed for the NVR calculation. And you don't, even if you order a task and image, you don't always get it. You know, plus minus 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe there was cloud cover. MODIS gives you a better option for that. Last question.
One of the things we're interested in Australia